what that means. When you say issuing bonds after the construction is completed, is that a source of public financing, public funding for this?
Correct. So when you're using the SID is a public entity, right? For
Right.
elected officials, through our local county government. So yeah, that is using a local government to get funds through public sources, correct?
All right.
Well, we'd be getting it from a bank. I mean, we would put out bids, when we want to do this, and we get some local banks to say, what's your plan?
Okay, and maybe that's what I don't understand and trying to get a solid understanding, because my concern is, well, first of all, the FAQs that went out, this was looked over for accuracy, right? By the SID and the HOA attorneys, just so we know that what we're reading is accurate. I just have questions, but I want to make sure I'm not asking questions about stuff we haven't even verified yet.
If there was something that was questionable that we thought we needed the attorney's opinion on, then we get the attorney's opinion on it.
Okay.
Not everything that's necessarily read over because.
Okay, so if I ask you a question we don't necessarily know the answer to, we can get some verification on that. All right. So number 11 here, when it talks about in the FAQ, what is the best financing option? Let me put my glasses on since I can't see anything. The best financing option for SID will be determined by going to the area financial markets and banks. Commonly, these are covered by the issuance of both tax-free municipal bonds or regular municipal bonds. So I'm interpreting that to mean public financing. And one of the questions that I had sent twice included that question because I've been trying to find where that source is, to find that answer that we can actually confirm that you can get public financing on a road that you say is going to remain private without dedicating that road public. And again, I cannot find the information. I'm pretty resourceful, and I want to make sure that once, when you hand over the SID or grant the easement, it's too late to get it back if our assumptions are incorrect. And that's my concern.
Can I just take these one at a time?
Yeah.
It's just easier for me.
I'm just trying to put it in context like you asked me to, Matt.
No, and I understand, I
because
appreciate.
it's a
So your first
general
question is, how do we fund this through the SID and ensure that our roads are still owned by us and they still remain private? Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay, so
because
the
you
point
say
is-
bonds, whether it's through the SID, and I don't think a lot of people are real sophisticated on what all this actually means.
Okay, so let's take this as a comparison. Let's go back to when we did the sewer and water system, right? The sewer system.
Okay, well,
When
I
that
didn't
was done-
understand that either, so, but okay.
Okay. Well, when that was done, it was one of those issues that had to go out to the community, and then ultimately it went through the same process that the roads would go. You have options of either going through an assessment, which is a direct cost spread equally amongst all of the residents. Then that would go out to municipal bonds, correct? Or you have an assessment, and
Bonds
that's
being
based off
public financing,
right.
okay?
Or you have the opportunity
Hold
for an
on.
assessment.
Can we hold on just to make sure everybody
When was the SID formed?
Oh.
And when did my sewer come in?
97.
And how is my sewer related to the SID?
This is the sewer.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm going to try to take these one at a time where it's going to get really muddy.
Yeah, so,
The sewer system was done, I believe it was back in 2000, I want to say.
and so it wasn't done by the SID, just confirmation?
Yes, it was done from the SID.
It was done from the SID?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
The SID was formed to do it.
Okay.
got it.
So you can either do it through the assessment, which we covered, or you can go through a levy. And a levy is based off, just like your general tax statement, right? It's based off a certain number multiplied times your valuation, and that's your amount due every year. Now that can go out to money market funds, which is a little bit different than municipal loans. So depending on market conditions, one's favorable over the other. Each has their pros and cons. Ultimately, with an assessment, one con is that if a guy has a $350,000 house, he'll get assessed differently dollar-wise than a guy with a $300,000 house. A pro is it's unilaterally tax deductible. There's no question about it.
Okay.
So there's pros and
Because
cons.
it's public
But
financing
with the
versus
same
private.
example brought to the roads, once we get through this entire process and we know the total cost after construction, and it goes to either a assessment or a levy, it can go up to 50% with the assessment, or excuse me, the levy can go 100% with the assessment. So there's some sort of a break. It can't be all levy. It's got to be at least 50% assessment. But nonetheless, you break it out, and then it gets paid on by the residents. Once that debt's paid off, it goes away. we still own the roads. The Woodcliff HOA is not giving up their property. We're just allowing the SID to put an easement, or have an easement to put surfacing over the top. It's just like our sewer system. We still own the ground. The SID owns all the piping underneath it. So at the end of the day, as residents, have we felt like we've lost anything, or did we lose control? Absolutely not. Right? We still have local residents who are serving as elected officials to represent our needs.
Right, there's a shift in a burden though. We've got a higher burden standard of passing something like this through the HOA, and it significantly changes when it becomes the SID. So,
Okay,
I mean,
so
we gotta be
I'm going to just
honest
wrap up
with
one
that.
question. I got to let everybody talk.
Okay, sure.
You did talk about burden, and that's a very good point. That's one of the things that we looked at from the committee. When you look at a project of this scale and complexity, who's best suited to both manage it and fund it?
Sure.
Now, we could have the HOA go out there and manage a project. They don't have a lot of experience with it, so they're going to have to hire professionals as well. They don't have a lot of the guidance that a SID typically does, specifically through an attorney, to work on a project like this, that the SID does. So in general, the continuity of the project is going to be much better through a SID. And then again, when you start talking about money, when the HOA is going to do it, they have to have the money up front to get the project started. So based off engineering studies, it's $15,236. Depending on where the project comes out, we'll have to offer a refund at the end and have to divvy it up through checks or whatever. But in the meantime, all the residents are sitting here having to pay for that road that's not yet installed, right?
Right.
And they're going to have to figure that how they pay for it individually. Do they take a personal loan? Do they write a check? Do they take a second mortgage? It gets kind of stressful for a property owner. As for we can go through the SID, and they don't pay for anything until it's done. And then once it's done, then they'll just levy an assessment, or they'll go through the general levy. So it makes it much more manageable to individual residents. No matter what option we look at, the goal is to not put any undue burden on a resident.
For sure, for sure.
I'm going to move on with questions. We can come back to you if you have more.
Matt, I need to finish because there's a series of these, and that's not just, I mean,
I think there was two things you asked that I'd like to clarify. So one is, where do we get this thing? Our lawyer for the SID, his leg, what's it called, Timberwoods, same thing. They have private roads, they have the SED come in and pave it, they finance it all, and done it. So this is not doing something new.
were those roads required to be dedicated public in order to utilize
No,
public?
they don't want, the county does not want the responsibility of these roads. The county has the responsibility of these roads, they have to police them, they have to do that, they have to make them meet county requirements for MIP.
Okay, I'm going to cut through the chase then, and then maybe we can get together and talk about this more specifically, because this is important. Once we hand over the roads or grant the easement to the SID, and then some of these assumptions that are being made don't happen, we don't get the roads back from the SID, okay?
Well, let's stress, we're not losing the roads.
Okay.
We gave them an easement.
All right, well, I've
We're
got
not
an
losing the
opinion that
roads.
says different, and I just want to understand it, and I think it's important. That's all I want to understand. I went and spoke to a real estate lawyer, developer, on this exact question. I mailed him this Friday afternoon. I got an answer, and I quote, "You cannot use public money to finance private streets. Unless you dedicate them public, if I'm not understanding or I asked the question wrong, unless you dedicate them public, you cannot get public financing for private streets." It was in an email I got Saturday morning. I just want to
Send
know.
us that email, we will give it to the SID attorney for an appropriate response.
Thank you.
And now we're going to back on.
Perfect.
I'm not really excited about handing anybody a blank check. I just don't think it's right. And I do believe that Saunders County, if they tell us the roads are going to be private, then we want to see a letter from them saying it's private before we vote on it. And I think we've got the horse before the cart. I just think they're kind of shoving us.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Did everybody hear Diane? Okay. So, I'll kind of go back on a couple of things here. One, the key point that I want to keep stressing, and this is a key point in the ballot, and specifically noted in the ballot, the matter that in order for the HOA to grant SID an easement, the roads must remain private. That's the key factor. We don't want to do anything that changes that. So it is a requirement in the ballot, and anything that alters from that or deviates no longer grants SID an easement. Okay, that is a requirement.
Matt, can I, just one more, please?
It comes down to how much stuff do you do in advance of getting the HOA to allow it. The SID can spend a lot of money, and it's our money, to get this stuff done, but if we don't give them the right, at the end of the day, wouldn't we call that wasted money? So if they can't get Saunders County to waive the right and responsibilities of these roads, to keep them private, they will not move forward. That's a key whole point. Now, we don't foresee it being an issue because when we look at what it took to put the gate in at the bottom of the hill, that gate was on Saunders County Road, Saunders County property. Ultimately, Saunders County gave the HOA the right to put that gate there by waiving their rights and their responsibilities for that section of road. So if they're willing to do that on a road that they paid for to maintain, we don't foresee it to be any issues to do it on a road that we're going to install and maintain.
And I would be happy to have our SID attorney and our HOA attorney to sign off on a letter that says the roads will remain private. I mean, would that be?
Well, or the lawyers, either one, they'll be.
Now, Diana, I want to touch on one last piece. So you talked about we're going to go forward with this without knowing the true cost, right? So this is always the challenging part of this project because here we are, we're trying to look at this holistically. What's this project look like? What's it going to cost? So that we can at least talk some sort of educated numbers. Otherwise, all we're doing is speculating. So we went out to JDO, which has a lot of history of doing estimates like this. Those estimates aren't just brought up, out of the blue. They look at a lot of projects that they've done recently and compare even those numbers to the NDOR standards when buying quantities that we're going to be requiring for a project of our size. They use all that and they roll it into a model, and that model helps determine what we would pay for concrete, what we're going to pay for drainage. And they also look at, road lengths and road widths based on previous works. There's a lot of information that rolls into this final number from JDO. Now, like everything, you take it out to the market for bid. If I say, hey, I need you to do this road and it's going to cost X amount, somebody will probably say, yeah, I can do that. But we have a more powerful tool. We can let it out for bid and then let people compete with one another to help drive down those costs. And that's the key point. When you work with the SID, they are required. It's a requirement that they go out and let the job for bid. Now, when I talk to local contractors, they gave us some feedback. January is a great time to let a job for bid because that's when everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to work on the next year. And when people are hungry, they bid lower. So there's ways to help control the cost. Now, let's speculate that something happens and market conditions change and materials go very expensive. Let's say concrete doubles in cost. The SID can still take this out for bid, and they can look at it and say, wow, prices have really gotten expensive. We can't do this for the $15,236. We're going to stop. So they're not going to just keep spending money. They have the responsibility, like everybody else, to make these numbers work. And then there's also the fact that let's say it goes from $40 a yard to $42, and the numbers go up a little bit. That's when you go back and you look at your plan and you say, what can we do to alter this plan to still make it fit into the budget that we have allocated? Maybe when we look at some of these other areas on the backside of the lake where we don't have the high traffic count, maybe we go from a 24-foot road, or from a 26-foot road to a 24-foot road. You look at that width over a great length of road, it's a lot of savings. There's ways that we can potentially scale back certain areas to more in line with your minimum design standards, or maybe even more in line with what we drive right now to help curtail those costs. At the end of the day, there are cost control measures, and the SID is going to make sure that we do not drive beyond the estimated cost.
Matt, don't you think that possibly we should not be voting on paving? We should be voting on a bond issue rather than paving? That way we have the absolute cost of what's going to happen, removing a fire hydrant or a tree. And what about the lot line?
Okay, so and you're right, so let's take a look at the list a little bit. Then I'm going to have to move on. I want to be fair and give everybody a question, but when we look at the length and the width of the roads, that was a study that came out from JDO in 2007. And Warren and I actually, when I was with Warren, we worked together and took that study, put it into a spreadsheet, and we actually used that for our road aggregate plan, specifically our magnesium chloride applications. So for the road widths that we're proposing, we already treat the roads to that width. All of those treated roads fit within our fire hydrants, our power lines, and our properties. A lot of places, actually, I'm amazed. I live on Timber Lane. That was a proposed 24-foot road width. But when I get out there and I measure between the brown posts, we're in excess of 24 feet. So I don't see any issues with running into trees, power lines, fire hydrants. There may be areas where we have a 30-foot of space and we're going to put a 24-foot road in. We're going to decide which side are we going to favor, or are we going to keep it dead center. But nothing's going to be taken or ripped out. So there's not going to be any properties that are going to, be torn down to make room for a road. That will not be an issue. All of these road widths that we've proposed are road widths that we currently maintain.
We stop
Next question.
sales.
I have a question from P-Plan 32. Typically, when you sign up, whether it's for a bond, whether you purchase anything, you know exactly what the cost is and you know what you're voting for. It doesn't matter to me whether you're for or against this initiative. I think the real issue is, what's the cost? And I know you've tried to kind of skirt around that a little bit. I know you guys did some due diligence, but why don't then we write and change the proposed ballot that says not to exceed X amount, and then we
It's
vote
conditional
again?
easement.
Or we wait for a different analysis to come back? Because from a fiscal responsibility perspective, this seems really weak in terms of how you would typically do at a business assessment.
I guess that's a good point. So you touch a little bit on, what the levy costs, and then also you touch on what the overall project costs. I want to keep them separate because they're really separate issues. The project costs are driven by market conditions and then general the design.
Hey, Matt,
The design-
Matt, you've already given the presentation. We've heard the presentation. Let people ask their questions. You don't need to justify tit for tat for everything somebody brings
What I
up.
want to stress is
No,
general design.
everything you said we've already heard in your presentation.
Let
Twice.
me back up a step here. In order to let this project out for bid, to get good estimates, you have to have a design. That design comes through an engineering firm. In order to get that design, you have to spend about $600,000. That's $600,000 of our money. And before we go that far and roll all those costs up, we want to make sure that it's what the residents want. If not, then the city's doing their diligence and spending our money wisely.
And that was
That's not
my
what we're
point.
voting on.
Let me finish really quick, and that's what the point was. You said, and your lawyer says in my email response last Thursday, all we're asking for is majority approval so the project can at least be considered. No, you're not. I can read. This does not say we're asking to get approval so the project. You are asking us to sign over, grant an easement to the SID has significant consequences. So just like I think everybody's going around saying it, that's my point. And your lawyer makes my point. There's a lot of unknowns, and that all we're asking for is a majority vote so the project can go forward. No, this is a legal transfer. This is binding. We become a party 446, and then we become a party of 5. And that's...
This is not a transfer of ownership. This is giving an easement.
It's a transfer of management. It absolutely is. And you have a fiduciary duty to protect these assets here. And it is a significant legal transfer of our rights from the HOA to the SID. And nowhere has it been spelled out in plain language for people to understand what that means. I don't know that you guys do.
Okay, lot 1062. I'd just like to say that in the presentation you say none of the other lake communities around here have dirt roads. That's why we picked Woodcliff. Exactly. In any way, shape, or form, the property values out here, we get more per square foot than any area in the whole, all of Omaha, everything else. I work in a real estate firm. They come to me and they ask me, really? Are they really getting this for their houses out there? Absolutely. Guess what? We've got dirt roads. I don't think they're going to increase the value, even if you increase the values, okay? With cement roads, you're going to put a lien against every single property for anybody that hasn't paid.
And you don't
When
know
they
how
look
much.
that up on the assessor website and they see that there's assessments on every single property for these people that are making payments, that's a deterrent for sales. Sorry, it is. And when you go to sell your property, that amount's going to be due in full.
And it has not been.
I would like to say, if you're selling your property, that stays with the seller. Did you
Yeah,
know
you
that?
pay that before, at the time of sale.
It depends on the actual thing, sometimes that's negotiated with the buyer and
No,
sells.
title must be clear. Title must be clear to
Depends if
transfer.
people need a mortgage or not.
No.
Okay?
Mortgage or not, your title to your property must be clear in order for you to take clean title. Your
That
title will
is
not be
true.
For the most part, most of the time, you are correct, you'll have to sell it to get
No,
it sold.
you can give the buyer the option to pay off the lien, to clear it, but the lien must be cleared.
That's true. So if the buyer decides to pay it off, the buyer decides to pay it off.
Sorry.
Okay, I think those are more comments, if there's no questions on that. One thing I think people need to keep in track in all this, okay? With what we're talking about in the easement, like he said, and what we need to listen in order to get a specific number, we need to spend enough money on engineering fees so that we can come down with that specific number. So I can't give you a hard fast number right now that it'll be this. We spent money with an engineering company to give us a good number, 15,000, whatever it is. And that's, with everyone we've talked to, when we talk to other engineering, other contractors, that should be a good number, okay? And that's
I
best
don't
we
think
can
John
do.
Palin, this was his
Mark Lyle,
intention.
S18, can you show us what JEO used to arrive at their numbers? Will they publish their reference material?
Yes.
I got a copy for you.
First of all, thank you guys for your
Yeah,
time.
they're gonna publish it.
I would imagine it's fun sitting up there getting graded by all of us, but, Nick Jorgensen, S1185, more of a technical question on the traffic study. So according to dirt and gravel road commissions, the way to do a study is to kind of center it around a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday study, never before the day of and the day after a holiday. So, just the question is why the committee felt it was appropriate to include one of the 3 busiest weekends that we have every year.
Okay. Woodcliff is a unique recreational area, okay? So for a lot of people, I tell you what, other than coming out for homeowners meetings and stuff like that, I barely came out in this winter, so wouldn't have been there. But during the summer, we are high peak flows, okay? And so if you're asking these roads to handle super peak roads and super traffic, you want to get a representative. Now, we chose a time when I was already back in school, so my kids were, so we weren't even out here other than the weekend, and tried to get a number. We even went after Labor Day and got that week to try to get a pretty
What
good
about
idea
January,
of
December,
what it is.
February?
Now, if you look at, from my standpoint, when I drove out here today, this morning, hardly any cars on the road. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're busier on the roads. So for an otherwise engineering firm, they may not want that. But me as a homeowner, when I'm paying as much money as I'm paying to live out here, for the 3 months I come out in the summer, I'd like to have nice roads. I'd like to have not muddy things. I want dust control. I want all these things. Okay.
We had on your Q&As that if we didn't do paved roads, we were gonna stick with the crushed concrete.
That's
Right?
incorrect.
Is that well, that's in your Q&As. It's in the Q&As
That
that
is
were
not-
released by you, that we have
So,
already in.
this year, 2016, the board, well, let's back up a step. The board puts their budget together typically in November of 2015. At that point in time, the roads committee had not presented their final presentation to the board to give them any sort of vision or plan going forward on what to do with their roads. By March, we presented our plan, and we had hard surfacing, and we also had the plan B, if you will, that if the residents didn't want to go with the best solution, we looked at other aggregates. This was one of the requirements when our committee was formed, to look at all materials. And we recommended that we use quartzite. So if this does not work, quartzite will be our best option.
That's not right.
Now, quartzite costs a lot more. So the budget's going to have to shift accordingly to cover the cost of quartzite. Again, our budget for 2016 was already set, so the board is going to continue this year with their already planned road
I would love for you to.
road plan, if you will, which is a certain amount of magnesium chloride, certain amount of magnesium or recycled concrete. Going forward, if the residents choose, we don't want to pave, and we want to go forward with the aggregate option that the road committee presented, so be it. The voice was heard. They're going to have to increase the dues to cover the cost of that other product, and in future years we can move forward with quartzite. To give you an idea of why quartzite wasn't applied this year, is it's a lot more expensive. We look at recycled concrete, it's $18.45 per ton. If we use quartzite, there's 2 different local vendors that we can source it from, and we're looking at about $53 to $58 per ton. So to use those numbers and apply them into a budget for this year, when it wasn't already budgeted, you're going to be buying a fraction of the aggregate that you need, or you're going to be going back asking for more money through a special assessment, which we'd all be sitting here again today asking for more money. That money is going to range between $60 and $80 per lot to put down the same amount of quartzite as recycled concrete. So future years, if people want to use quartzite, well, they'll have to raise their dues to cover up the needs. However, that wasn't in this year's budgeted plan, so it'll have to be done the same way that we've always done it for 2016. I'm going to shift over to the left side of the room here.
When you looked at this in 2007, can you address how much the cost had went up since 2007?
Yeah, we did look at that a little bit. You know, the 2007 study was a little bit different than 2016. 2007, we looked at doing 6-inch road width, which was standard for a lot of the road projects at that point in time. They've since changed. Most roads anymore are 7-inch thick concrete. Also, in those days, we just looked at a road and a road only. Our plan also added a 4-foot pedestrian lane. So for that reason, the costs aren't exactly apples to apples comparison. But ultimately, if you look at the two, the cost that was per lot back in 2007 was about $9.8 million per lot, which, you know, 9.8 thousand per lot. Thank you. And then today we're looking at about 15,300 per lot. So really, we've looked at a 57% increase in costs from 2007 to 2016. It's a 57% increase. Now, you take that same amount of money, we're looking, you know, about $5,000 per lot in increased costs for materials for paving. Keep in mind, from 2007 to 2016, we've still been spending money on aggregate. That's a lot of money. So there's another $750,000 that we spent to keep doing what we're still doing. And here we are, 9 years later, still talking about the best option for Woodcliff's roads, and we're still talking about hard surfacing.
That's our job.
So if you look at what the cost of deferral is, and you add in what you spent on aggregates, each lot is spending $7,300 more than if we would have just done this in 2007.
Sally Vilma, S1158, and Matt, regarding the quartzite, Warren and I exchanged communication this week about the cost of purchasing, transporting it, stockpiling it, and then grading it. I can quote from these, it's all right here. And take out the cost for stockpiling, because we've already pretty much solved that. It comes for 1,200 tons that we would currently require in that.
That's correct.
Comes out to $133 a lot. To get it, to pay for it, to get it here, and to spread it.
So what it comes down to is, what are we paying now for recycled concrete? What do we pay for quartzite? And it's the difference in cost is what we're looking at that would result in an increase in dues.
And of course,
and it all comes down to what is the cost. The key point that the committee looked at, when we looked at all the different aggregates, we used a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. One of the biggest threats with quartzite is the fact that it's mined in South Dakota. Sioux Falls is one of the biggest mines. You've done your research, you know where it comes from. And when we look at that, the majority of the cost for quartzite is not the material, it's the shipping. When we first quoted it back in January, diesel was about $9, $10 per gallon. We were getting estimates about $45 per ton delivered to Woodcliff on the roads. Now, late April, when everybody revised their quotes, looked at current costs, diesel is about $1.90 to $2 per gallon. And we're getting quotes between $53 and $61 per ton. So here's a product that 75% of its cost is in shipping. And every time fuel goes up, the product goes up. And as Sally, you touched on, we're talking about 1,200 tons, right? So that's a lot of material to be shipped. And if we're going to see diesel go up 90 cents per gallon and the material go up about $10 per ton, what if diesel goes back to $2.50 or $3 per gallon? Then we're going to be going up exponentially on cost. So,
can I just finish?
Absolutely.
It doesn't need to be quartzite. I mean, that's just something that popped in my head and looked at. River rock is a good solution. We used to have it out here. it did not, the old timers, well, I'm an old timer too, but some of us remember that there is dust. There's gonna be dust, but not to this. This is the bottom feeder of aggregate to put on a road. Because
Kevin Blumker, S63. You know, my major concern is safety for the kids.
Yes.
And the saying that John always had was that this was a great place to raise a family. I'm opposed to concrete just because I don't want to see these kids get hurt. And we've had one death on the lake, and the next thing, you can't have tolls. Now, I realize that's a state law, okay? But I can see something like this happening on our concrete roads, and I think that's gonna end the four-wheelers for the kids. They're gonna be going real
That's a very good point. It's a point that I would say the committee took very actively when we looked at our different plans. A core element of Woodcliff, you know, we talk about comparing it to other lakes. We have ATVs, UTVs, golf carts. It's part of who we are, right? It's not just a lake community. So when we looked at this, we said, you know, how would it affect ATVs, golf carts, UTVs? And we looked at some of the surrounding communities. Let's look at Fremont, it's right next door. They allow UTVs on all their public roadways below 45 mile an hour. Okay, so we know that UTVs are safe on hard surfaced roads. Let's look at ATVs, for instance. Our neighbors over at Valley, Nebraska, okay, they have a city ordinance that allows ATVs on all paved roads 25 mile an hour or less. Now granted, they have a couple other requirements, you know, at the age of 16 because it is a public roadway. We're not, so guess what? We're going to stick to the HOA rules, and their HOA rules dictate what age is on what equipment. Now, there's always the question, go back and forth, you know, Valley allows ATVs on paved roads, and Fremont allows UTVs on paved roads. How's it going to work with Woodcliff? Now, I think we can all agree, we have a stretch of time in the summer that Woodcliff roads are really nice. It's when we finally get the traffic to pack down the roads, the rain has finally stopped, we've got a fair amount of humidity where that magnesium chloride is doing its hydroscopic job and acting as a really good binder for our roads, and they're almost like blacktop. I think we all remember that point in time. Did any of us see an increase in ATV, UTV accidents? We're not talking curbs. Are we talking runoff or are we talking ATVs?
We're gonna talk both.
Okay.
Children's Hospital and the ATV industry all encourage you not to ride ATVs and four-wheelers on solid surface.
I understand there's also...
Ride them under the age of 16, so we allowed it at 12, so you're breaking the rule there too.
well, Fremont doesn't allow
I'm
ATVs,
talking about
That's,
safety.
Sally, I was very clear. Fremont allows UTVs.
not ATVs. They-
Valley allows ATVs.
I don't
Now
care
keep in
about
mind that we're dealing with two different vehicles
You used an
in two
analogy
different
to Fremont.
environments.
You use an analogy to the city of Fremont. They do not allow ATVs. You must have a driver's license, you must show proof of insurance, and you must be 18 years old. Big difference.
I think I
No,
clearly
no.
articulated the point that there
No, you
are
didn't.
differences.
No, you did.
No, you didn't.
Okay. So again, Fremont, UTVs can be driven by licensed operators on roads 45 mile an hour or less, so be it they have a posted flag at 6 foot of height off the ground. The City of Valley is not much different, however, they do allow ATVs, and again, you must be a licensed operator on a road at 25 mile an hour or under.
I have a question about funding and the flat charge that every lot. Particularly in the fact, or question and answer pamphlet on question 12, it talked about, asked about funding per lot versus per linear road footage. And I'm just wondering, that question wasn't answered, it just,
Okay, so yeah, you make a good point on that. The question was, when we get into funding, how are we going to fund it? Is it per platted lot? Is it going to be per linear foot? Or just based on property value? So let's talk about it in two different parts. I touched on earlier, you have assessments and you have levy. So the levy doesn't give consideration to anything but property value, right? So that's why the committee made the recommendation that we go with an assessment rather than a levy, because we want to keep everything fair. It's the way the HOA typically works. Everybody pays the same.
but I don't want to
Okay, so,
I don't think my little cabin with this much should pay as much as someone who lives out there full time and has a.
so here's what we did. We looked at, give me a second, guys. We looked at other communities, and we actually met, guys, we met with some SID members from neighboring communities that actually did some paving projects. And those communities, one in particular, they actually broke up their paving plan, and they did a price per linear foot. It worked really well with them because they were in town and they were in your basic grid setup, right? Everything's just 90-degree corners. And every lot was occupied. What's unique about Woodcliff is you've got, let's take Maple Lane, Shady Lane, let's take Airport Road. You've got houses on one side of the road, or on some roads you don't have houses on either side. Those costs have to be covered in the paving plan. So to do a cost per linear foot of road frontage becomes very cumbersome, and it was very difficult to manage. So for that reason, we ruled it out. We said, historically, the way that the HOA has always done business is we look at cost per lot. The same thing was done with sewer systems. We're trying to keep things consistent. No matter how you divvy it up, there's always going to be some sort of inequality, and we recognize that.
But how does it work in my city? I pay for everything with my property taxes, and it's just based on my property's value, and sometimes all this, not everything's fair in the neighborhood.
So in that situation where you cover with a levy, the city can look at that, but keep in mind, that can only cover up to 50% of the cost. So when you look at this, the remaining 50 would then have to be covered through a direct assessment. So there's a mixture, assessment and a levy. Levy can only go up to 50%. And based on market conditions, after the roads are put in and those construction warrants are switched over to bonds, the city will have to look at that and say, what makes the most economic sense for our residents? If it just really makes more sense to take it out to a levy, they'll do so. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that this is using our money in the best way possible. It may be an assessment, it may be a levy. Does that answer your question?
It's reckless.
Shouldn't we know that
Yep.
ahead of time?
The SID is a little limited on what we can do when we don't even have the right to do anything. So can we really spend a lot of money on lawyers and calculations and coming up with numbers when we don't even have the authority to do it?
So we'll just sign a blank check.
You're not
So
signing
the point that I want
an agreement that should be around $15,000 when we're all said and done.
The point that we want to stress, Mark, is the CID has a very structured method of approaching projects like this. They have open meetings, and everybody has the opportunity to voice their concern
Like
at each
now?
and every meeting.
Like we've had
So
in
if
this
the
project?
project appears to go in a direction that's differently than what we've proposed, let's show up and let's beat down the door of the SIDA. But they're residents. They're just like us. They're going to do what's best for Woodcliff. We're going to make sure that we do this in the best way possible. There's going to be nothing back door. There's going to be, or everything about it is going to be open and public. Everything they do is through public meetings. So if this passes, we highly recommend everybody attend their advertised meetings so that they can make sure that this project is managed in just the same approach that we've discussed.
We have no say.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Ron Paulson. Would the businesses pay the same amount of tax as us individuals?
That's a good question, Ron. The question was, do the businesses pay the same thing as everybody else? When we talked about it, just divvying it up equally through assessments, no. And the reason is, just like everything the city has done, it's done through equal cost per platted lot. Now, if this goes, and some of it goes to a levy, their valuations are higher, they are going to pay more. But as a committee, we even discussed this, and we talked about it with the board a little bit. Let's say that we do make the marina, the restaurant, pay $20,000 more. Would it make us feel like they're paying more, they're getting more? Some of us it may, some of us it may not. But what does it mean to us as individuals? It'll take $100 off what I owe. Do I want
Where'd you put it?
to put my restaurant or marina, who we consider a huge asset to this community, in some sort of financial strain over $100? As a group, we collectively said it didn't seem like the best approach.
They generate a lot more traffic than I do.
That's right.
That's correct, and their revenue also helps us. It's a catch-22, it's a relationship, right? I'm sorry, well, their revenue doesn't help you, but what it does do is it helps keep their doors open to give us that anonymity. Again, if this goes out and it goes to a levy, you're absolutely right, they are going to pay differently. But many things that they do and they pay for For instance, any kind of dredging things in the past didn't have any impact on their business, but they still do, right? So at the end of the day, we're trying to keep things. I'm sorry? That's correct. What we're trying to do is stick with past practice. Past practice through the homeowners association is equal assessment. Again, if the SID finds that we need to go through a levy, they will end up paying more because their assessed value is higher.
Well, if it's only $100 or so, if they changed it and the restaurants, the businesses paid more money, then how come it's not only $100 or so extra if we wanted quartzite instead of $1,000 for?
It's difference in proportion. So we're talking 6.8 million, and we talked about divvying that up between 446 lots. If you change that 6.8 million and offset it with a $20,000 extra fee for a restaurant, and you divide that between 446, and you do the math between charging those two businesses, it's very insignificant. That's where you have a low budget, like $120,000, right? You divide that between 446. Let's say you want to stick to restaurants with higher costs. I'm sorry?
Still only $100 an hour.
I'm not sure I quite understand your point.
No, I don't know how to explain it. But if it's only $100 that we're taking by the restaurant to pay more money, why are you guys so afraid to spend an extra $100 to not have fresh concrete, those quartzite buildings that don't have all of that?
Well, it's two totally different things. To raise the dues to cover the cost of quartzite, it has to fit inside the HOA's proposed budget, and that was the budget that they approved in December, and they billed the residents in January, okay? So to go beyond that, they're gonna have to get any extra money through an assessment. To have an assessment, they have to have a public meeting, and it has to be voted on, and it has to be voted on by a majority. Simply put, this year, it's not in the budget to switch from recycled concrete to quartzite.
When was the last time you raised our dues?
We raised almost,
How much did you raise?
I think it was 200 because we started at 6 something 3 years ago.
Percentage wise?
It's less than 5%, probably.
Because I mean, we could, over the next couple of years, if we did 10% this year and 10%.
well, you're bound by your bylaws. You can only raise them so many percent per year and every 2 years. So if you try to take a 6% increase this year, you're bound to 4% next year. So you can't just throw out these carte blanche numbers. You're restrained to specific increases. Go
Until it gets passed to the SID.
ahead. Right, so if you put down quartzite, the question was, do you still have to use magnesium chloride? And the answer is yes.
No.
That being said, you'll do it at a reduced amount. When we look at quartzite it's a great product. It's a very hard rock. It fractures with a very rough rock face, so it binds well. At the end of the day, it's still going to mix with the aggregate that we already have on our road. That's a mixture of fines, concrete, limestone, road gravel, everything that's been applied through the years. And you want to mix with that because that's what fills the void between those chunks of aggregate. But at the end of the day, that has to stick to give you a stable road surface. And also, you have to treat it with something so that it doesn't emit dust as you drive by. That will still be magnesium chloride. However, because the quartzite doesn't absorb as much as concrete or limestone, you can reduce your magnesium chloride to about 75% of what we're currently using. And there's going to be a little tweaking to that, like everything it's a rough number based off the absorption rate of quartzite, and then from there you'll tweak it to the environment. But will you still use magnesium chloride? Yes, but you will be able to scale it back.
Matt, I would like to invite you to investigate a company called Midwest Industries that has a road stability product that has binding fibers, and the longer you drive over it, the stronger it gets, and it's not magnesium chloride based or anything like that. Just research it. They have
Is that a product called SF2?
One of their products is SF2, but
Okay.
Midwest Industries has a lot of different products. They're all over the country with their projects. They're environmentally friendly. This is something we can apply for grants to offset the cost of, or we're not getting bond money and hitting everybody up for a ton of
So,
money to get
we'll
this
take-
stuff done.
And I think you nailed it.
It's
I
just
mean,
an option to quartzite.
no, and I appreciate you throwing that out there. I actually was in your situation a number of years ago. I said, there's got to be better ways for what we're doing, right? I mean, to do the same thing over and over just seems crazy. So back in 2007, I was doing a lot of research on alternative road plans. I said, what else is out there? What's more, what's better for our environment? What's better for our roads? And there was a product at that point in time called road oil. Basically, it's emulsified tree resin, basically tree sap. They run it through, they chemically change it a little bit, and they actually apply it to the roads. So we used it out here for one application, but we had a test strip to use it with both, at this point in time, limestone, and with a different road base being bottom ash, which is used in a lot of road paving projects to help stabilize the roads. So from the interest of the community center, we actually stripped a lot of the aggregate, put down bottom ash, graded it, and then we did a complete application around the entire lake with a product called road oil. Midwest Industries was the vendor again. And with that product, it did really well for about a week. And then at that point, the surface started to break up across the top. Imagine like a pie crust, and it just started to flake. And once that started to flake, you started to get rain, anything that would get underneath it, harrows, it started to break apart, and we just had a huge dust issue.
So you're
And it
talking
was
about a
very, very
totally
expensive.
different product, right?
It was a different
Road oil
product, but
is not what I'm talking
it's a
about.
soil stabilization product that was and is still used in practice at remote airstrips, quarry roads, mining roads.
But that's not the SF2.
Correct. So I am
So
familiar with
that's-
SF2.
we're bringing
We
up a
looked at
different
alternative plans, and if you look at SF2, it's kind of like chip and seal. It's a very good binder. I will not argue that one bit. But in order to make it work, you have to go through and you have to pull a lot of your aggregate up, 8 to 10 inches, if I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. You need to pull that up and you need to mix it in with the SF2 product. You need to lay it back down, compact it, and then again you have to shape it to get your crown.
And it gets harder over time, and it's significantly
Correct.
less.
It does get harder over time, and like everything, there comes a breakdown point. And that breakdown point is nowhere near the life cycle of concrete. However, because you're dealing with something that is so labor-intensive with heavy equipment, the time and money that you spend to apply that SF2, I'm going to challenge you to go out there and get some quotes for me. I'll give you whatever
I
information
will.
you need.
I've already
But
submitted
you're
all
going to
the
be in the $1 million plus range, and you still haven't addressed the other component to this project that no one else has, and it's drainage. We have to install drains and we have to install ribbons to get the water away from the roads so that no matter what we do, it doesn't break down.
And have we contacted FEMA about what we're doing out here since we're in a majority of a flood zone? Do they have to have any part of what we're doing, or do we have to have permission for the types of roads we're putting in or anything
Well, you
like
do
that?
go through your normal permitting process, but your FEMA does not have to be contacted for the road. You're going to have something when you start dealing with our levee, and that's part of your permitting. I believe it's a 404 permitting. Again, if somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but okay. So you'd still have to go through permitting processes. And I know there's questions about, when you pave the roads, does that affect the ability for the lake to flood? I'm going to be honest and say no. Our chance of flooding is going to be more so from the Platte River than any kind of road surface we put down.
It hasn't flooded in 50 years, man.
I'm sorry?
It hasn't flooded in 50 years.
And he's saying he doesn't believe it
No,
does.
but I'm wondering, we're talking the possibility of putting some of this water into the river.
Well, what we want to do is we're not putting it directly into the river. What we want to do is get the water on the exterior roads wherever it's feasible. We want to shed the water to the outside of the roads, outside away from the lake.
And you said.
To the river.
To put it into the river, a pipe under the road, into the river is what you said.
Okay, towards the river. And it's going to be no different than what we do with our lake. Correct? So right now we shed our water into the lake and then we shed that to the river. At the end of the day, we're doing the same thing that we're still doing, but we're trying to take the lake out of the equation.
Go ahead, Pat.
He spends a lot of time. S60, Pat Earl, I have a house out here since '08. So if we raise our dues $60 a year, that takes 250 years to pay $15,000 for one. For two, if we do quartzite, we have to fix the roads that have been sabotaged with fresh concrete for the last couple of years. We need to take out 4 to 6 inches and then relay a new base, get a good base, and start from scratch, because right now we have a disaster and it's not going to be fixed with any overlay of anything.
Okay. And you make a point, Pat. Anytime you transition from product to product, there's a transition period before you really start to see its results, right? We've transitioned from limestone to river rock to road gravel, to recycled concrete. We've kind of went the full gamut, and now when you look at our roads, it's a mixture of everything. It's a pro and a con. Everything has a benefit to our roads. Some stuff also comes with a negative. River rock's great, it doesn't emit dust. I'll admit that. It's negative because it doesn't bind, right? It just wants to sink into the road. Recycled concrete's great because it wants to bind, but like limestone, it emits dust. When you mix all this together, you're kind of ending up with road gravel, which really is a combination of a lot of different materials.
That's your opinion,
If
Matt.
you notice from past years to current years, our road stability is increasing. And I remember when I first moved out here in 2004, I live on the opposite side from the entrance, and I would drive around the fishing lake on my way out here. When I got to the corner of the fishing lake, the road was so soft and so muddy that I'd have to put my Super Crew in four-wheel drive. Is that a problem we see today? No.
It's his
Do
personal
we have other
opinion.
problems? Yes. It's because we've had an evolution of aggregates. Everyone adds to the effect from the one previous. Some ways it's worked better. It's given us really good road stability. Other ways, yeah, we've got some negatives. And Pat, as you suggested, if we wanted to switch to quartzite, we could certainly go and excavate all the material off the top of our road, say 6 or 8 inches, put some stabilization down with some fabric and then recoat it with quartzite. That can certainly be done. It's going to be a very large sum of money. So keep in mind, we're still talking a 7-figure project that still has limitations of aggregate. 350 to 500 cars per day. So no matter what we look at, let's keep in mind, there are limitations of aggregate. There's a reason you don't see aggregates on traffic count or on roads in a town or city that has any sizable amount of traffic.
Well, we're not a town.
We're not a town or city, that's right.
Well, it's done through 3 to 4 treatments per year, but it's right about, correct me, 60 to 65,000 gallons. Last year was 64,000 gallons. No.
What was the question, please? We
The
couldn't hear.
tolerance to dust was changed such that there is not a single road that we did not treat, and the application rate has changed. For in the past, we would treat it just prior to Memorial Weekend, and then in the most recent years, weather permitting, we try to treat it somewhere in mid-May, and then treat through June, July, and try to get our last treatment in right before Labor Day weekend. It's going to have a lot of impact on our lake health. The MSDS on magnesium chloride says it's not harmful to a lake, it's not harmful to people. The problem is what the magnesium chloride does to the water. What it does is it helps keep a lot of the fine sediment that we use in our roads for stability. It also keeps it in the water column in the lake, which helps diffuse the water. It makes it basically counterproductive to lake health.
One thing
Tim,
we
if you'd
do
like to
like
elaborate.
with magnesium chloride, if you look at before this concrete we put down in your house, last week or whatever, when it rained, it looked like shit coming out of the tube. There hasn't been any magnesium chloride on the road for 8 months.
That's fine. It's not
I mean, everyone's blaming that all on magnesium chloride, and that is just all dirt and crap fungus in the weather.
Do you have any estimates on what our increased property taxes will be due to the
Property
increased value of
taxes
the
will
property?
only increase if property values increase. So if people have pavement out here, and my house that used to sell for $280,000 is now selling for $290,000, then they will increase it based on they do it based on what sells.
Is there any estimate to what that would be increased by?
Well, it's the increase in property value is going to be based off comps, right? It's going to be based off neighboring properties and what they've sold for. And the most common calculator, the multiplier, is cost per square foot. As you see a gradual increase in cost per square foot, you're going to see an increase in value. And then as that value translates to sales, that will help drive up value. And that would also have an effect on assessed value, which would then have a correlation to increased taxes. But it's not like it goes hand in hand. You make an improvement to the road, you see an increase in your property tax values. It's just like we see now.
In front of everybody's yard, so I'm just trying to see what
Yeah, the sign's saying it's $100.
Somebody have a red minivan?
Right in front.
No, it's not you. It's not you. Now it's you.
Just a minute, let me get it going, just a second.
I think it's mine.
Is it yours?
I have a question.
Yeah, I've got one on the table.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
It's a sign.
They're out there setting off the alarms.
Pave them just short of the road. Others spend their own money to pave to the road. I don't know. How does this, if for any reason this goes through, what do you think will do the driveways of the people that brought it to the road?
Right, so that is a little bit of a tough one, because part of the JEO plan that hasn't been engineered, if you will, is the exact elevations. And even with the elevations, you have to figure out the crown, and where that crown matches up to existing driveways, that's yet to be determined. Until we have that plan, we don't know. The reality is, I think we all can say that not every driveway is gonna match up. And we'll have to take those on a case-by-case basis. You know, myself, if my driveway's, right up to the road and it's off, that's going to have to be on me. The project doesn't cover individual driveways that extend out into the road. Right? Now, there's a lot of roads that, like Airport Road, for instance, a lot of those driveways abut a drainage ribbon. This road is going to tie into the ribbon. It won't be a big factor at all. I've driven around the lake and I've looked at a lot of the different houses that have driveways. A lot of them actually pave short of the road, or in like my case, where I've got very close to the road but not on it. I've got 30 foot between the Woodcliff pins. We're going to do that road in 24 feet. So let's say that there's 3 feet between the edge of the road and where my lot line would be. And then there's also a gap in the lot line in my driveway. There's going to be about 4 to 5 feet that we're going to have to transition to the road. That would be on me. That's outside the realm of the project.
Okay, so when we did our driveway, the one that is not in the road as it exists today. But we wanted to beat the road, and we put a drain and then just a short slab of concrete to beat the road.
Well, I don't want to speak too much. I'm not a civil engineer. I don't design roads. It's not my specialty. So that's one of those that I pay case by case. I know your section of road, and like, if there's any one thing I can tell you, your road is not going to go lower. Right? It's already a very low section. So it's one of the things that the engineer is going to have to look at, what they're already dealing with now, what they have to tie in, and what's it going to tie in for the surrounding road, and figure out where their elevations are going to be. So I can't answer that question very specifically right now, simply because it's a very detailed question for a very generalized plan at this point in time.
A lot of questions on environment, stuff like that. We've been down this road before. Exactly the same question. Everybody talked about that. Now we seem to be very detailed into this. I thought we haven't figured out whether people will support paved roads anymore.
That's what we're here for.
Now, they're asking me how bonds work.
Yeah, you're right. We're getting kind of into the weeds a little bit on how bonds and levies work, but I mean, we want to address those questions while we talk about paving, because ultimately that is going to be the funding source. But you're right, it is something that we've used before. We did the sewer system. This is not a new concept at Woodcliff.
Ron Schaefer, 1218. I guess my question comes back to the fact that we all realize that our roads suck out here right now. Okay? I think we all agree on that. But I feel like it's a threat when you say we have to live with this through 2016 because we've already established our budget. Do we not have the ability, just like we did with our, once again, boats out there, to put a special assessment out there, get additional funding, and put some product out there that, once again, is not crushed concrete? And yeah, we have a problem, but we can improve it immediately by, once again, a special assessment.
And you're right. It's one of those where there has to come that point in the ground where you draw the line, you say, you know what, enough's enough, we need to do something different, right? That's where we're at today. So we agree that if we don't pave it, we have to do something different. And something different right now looks like quartzite. Maybe we'll use some SF2 soil stabilizer. Maybe we'll do some excavation. But
we don't need to go into that.
There has to be a point where you
people can walk out of here thinking that we can change it yet in 2016. It doesn't have to be concrete. We can put a different solution out there, right? And also, is there a reason when we push the concrete down that we don't put the sealant on for 2 weeks?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons, and Warren can elaborate, but ideally, they grade the roads to get rid of all the potholes and all that. They go ahead and they apply all the rock through gravel, or from the truck, and they really let the traffic drive it into the road. This is the way it's been done for a number of years. Just because it's been done that way doesn't mean it's right, but it does help get that aggregate worked into the road, evenly distributed, and then we're going to follow back up with the grader, knead it in, get the crown established, and then follow with the dust control. The key element here is timing. If you got the weather, that's when you want to do it. We were looking at rain in the forecast today. Looks like they missed. We need to have the rain so that we can grade and help control that dust, right? Because every time you grade, you get dust. So you want to time it. And then again, before you put your magnesium chloride down, you want that material to be basically moist.
I'd say let's just put some better product down.
Understand? So
Don't you
moving
think
forward,
that'd be better?
if we do not approve paving, we'll have to make a switch to quartzite. I think next year we
All
can
right, thank
expect
you.
that.
Why not this year?
Whether it's approved or not, we can still do it this year. Whether it's
Yeah.
approved or not, doesn't
We
change
have to
the
come
road.
up with the money, okay? We don't have the money, so we have to go through.
I don't think anybody here will argue with a assessment to improve our roads from where they are at right now.
Correct. So I'm
Without a
gonna take
$15,000
a
price
step
tag
back.
associated with it.
When the board was doing the budget last year,
Pat,
They work hard on the gate.
I understand you have a budget. I understand that. My question, and you've already answered it, thank you, is we can ask for a special assessment to, once again, put a better product out. And if the community out there approves it, then we'll do it, right?
correct?
Thank you.
More questions?
Chris, you had one?
That was my,
I'm gonna get, I'm sorry, Chris, you can wait. I will get back to you and maybe
that was
Rich.
my question, was about timing between putting down the crushed concrete and applying the dust abatement. That was my question.
I think currently, Warren, you're shooting for May 19th for the dust control?
It's a process. We try to put the dust control down the second day after we put the new rock down, and it's very porous and soaks it up. We've got one year we actually had to come back with a second application about 2 weeks after the first one. Like I say, it's a process. What we like to do is put down the fresh, get a couple of rain walls, nice and moist, mix the old with the new, get the crown back on it. And again, it's when these cranes come and when we can do that, and then apply the dust control while there's some moisture in the road. We're shooting for within the next, I would say 7 to 10 days. We just put down last week. It's normally about a 10-day to 2-week process. We're probably about a week into it. Well, I think tomorrow. I think they started doing it. Yeah, a week ago yesterday. Or a week ago tomorrow. Like I say, you learn a lot of this stuff by trial and error. Sometimes the trial will blow up in your face. But recycled concrete is road gravel and limestone. We get recycled directly from our shredding mix. It's the cow patties. It's nothing that comes out of breakouts or patios or highway projects. So it has no metal in it. We run it through the crusher twice.
It has no
For every
metal in it?
ton of concrete we put through the crusher, you get somewhere around 500 to 600 pounds of what we put on these crushers. So a lot of what goes on here is what we've used in the past, and that is road gravel, limestone. That's what the constituent concrete are.
Okay, and one thing, and I have not done a lot of research personally about this, but I've heard that there are some health issues with ground concrete, with the silica content and things like that. Has that ever been looked into by?
Silica is the second most prominent element in here. It's crust. It's everywhere.
Okay.
I'll get on the roads and you clean up your beach because
Yeah,
it's just full of it too.
I was just wondering, because I had heard that there are some health issues related to it,
It's
so I didn't.
mainly due to contractors that are running concrete saws, say without running water. The concrete saw normally has a water hose attached to it to keep all that into a slurry fashion.
So we don't need to worry about health
No.
issues related to crushed
I guess, Warren, you can touch on the source for our recycled concrete. There are guys that actually do the crushing and sifting of the concrete.
I called Boulevard for any mix. I got an email from somebody. I called Gory's. Gory routinely gets checked on by OSHA. I talked to Mike Arps at Arps Ready Mix, asked him what their people had to do in terms of preventative measures. And Gory is nothing, and Arps is only if they're working like in hopper trucks or something like that in a confined space. And it's just a mask is all it is. It's not one of the closed loop systems.
Okay, sir, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Dan Klein, S1064. I want to thank the board and all the work and time that you put into that. I'm a builder developer in Lincoln. We've been out here over 20 years. We're not leaving. I would wish that we had done this 10 years ago and put hard paved roads in at that time. But we can't go back. I would really just encourage all of you to consider the benefit in terms of safety and cleanliness driving wherever you go on concrete roads as compared to working and traversing on gravel and stone and recycled concrete. My vote is to go ahead and do the concrete, get it done as economically as we can. I know it's a challenge when you have bids, and you've done a great job of estimating this. So there are some things that need to be cleaned up a little bit, as with any project that we're working on. But thank you for what it is. It's a blessing for my family and my grandkids to be out here at the lake, and I plan on staying.
Thank you. I'm making my way across the room. Audrey, I've seen you waiting back there.
So, the problem with the concrete is the size of the, dust particles that we're breathing. So, from the board, I don't think that you said it was particularly safe to breathe, right? I don't think anybody should leave here thinking that it is safe to breathe.
Well, I think what we want to stress is that we have to get this from a supplier, correct? And the supplier is the one that's taking the raw concrete and crushing it. And we look at what they're covered under OSHA requirements. When we look at what their employees are required to wear, they have gloves and safety glasses like anybody in that industry. They have the option as a choice to wear a dust mask. It is not an OSHA requirement. So when we start looking at safety personnel, I'm not saying it's comfortable.
So I'm just saying, I don't want anybody to think that you guys are saying that it's particularly good or safe to breathe. Because it's not a big chunk of concrete.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not,
the dust.
it's not ideal, it's not safe, but I can say that same for dust of any and all types.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to move over to Don. I'll get back to you, right? Go ahead, Don.
It sounds to me like there might be some sort of a hard statistic where always be bad in dust. And in order to curb dust, we're going to have to put some sort of dust inhibitor in it, which, from what I've gathered so far, I don't think there's anything that is good out there that is non-corrosive parts. I mean, if you look at the parts that have been out here all year round, we all a lot of yards, but like the parts really low, the bottom of it is all over. It's just metal. And yeah, plastic it doesn't hurt. Metal, it'll eat it up. I'm done.